Hello parents and senior students of John Paul College. My name is Michael O'Keefe, Deputy Principal Learning and Teaching, and I'm here today to introduce this information video that will be useful as you navigate the final years of schooling at JPC. This video focuses on the VCE Vocational Major, or VM. This program allows students to undertake vocational training alongside their academic studies and is a great way for students to gain practical skills that can help them in their future careers. This video will provide information on the VM program, including the types of courses available, how to apply, and the benefits of undertaking a VM. I hope that this video will provide you valuable information that will assist you in supporting your child through the final years of study at John Paul College.
My name is Donna Matthews. I'm the head of VCE Vocational Major and also the VET coordinator at John Paul College. I'll be going through the reforms to the system and with a particular focus on the vocational major part of VCE and also the other certificate, which is the Victorian Pathways Certificate. I'll just begin to give you a little bit of context about the change to VCE because it's the first major reform in 20 years of education in Victoria. So following on from the Firth report, the recommendation was made that there needed to be a change to what was previously called the VCAL, the Victorian Certificate of Applied Learning. So the change has been made so that there will be alternate certificates as of 2023. So the standard or the scored VCE, Victorian Certificate of Education, is the one that most people know, and that one has remained the same. But there has been a change to what was VCAL before that. So there are two branches of the certificate that follows on from that, and there is the VCE Vocational Major, which is ostensibly replacing intermediate and senior levels of VCAL as of this year. And then there is an additional certificate, which is the Victorian Pathways Certificate, which replaces Foundation VCAL. But I'll speak about that shortly as well. So this diagram shows you the pathways that lead on from these three certificates. So you can see that the overarching certificate of VCE, and as the arrow suggests there, that can lead to an apprenticeship traineeship, but that certificate will give you the ATAR, which then will enable direct entry into university. Whereas you'll see with vocational major, its destination is primarily apprenticeship, employment, or further VET. It doesn't generate an ATAR, and therefore direct entry, in year 13 isn't the purpose of VM. And so different pathways into university are possible, but really the pathways are apprenticeship and employment. And then we have the additional pathway of Victorian Pathways Certificate, which is designed for a different purpose, as I'll go into in a minute, but it leads more towards further VET study rather than it's not going to be a direct entry into even apprenticeship necessarily. It's a more bespoke program, and so I'll talk about that a little bit more. But before I get into that, so looking at what a VCE student, like a classic VCE student or a scored program as opposed to a vocational major student, I think this information typifies it best. So it's got the idea of VM is much more anchored to real world scenarios and real world application of skills and knowledge. Not to say that a scored VCE program doesn't do the same things, but it's more built upon knowledge and a more theoretical application of that knowledge. So that's where the two programs really diverge. So as you can see there, a little bit of an explanation of the difference between a VCE VM standard program and what is the other new certificate, which is the Victorian Pathways Certificate. Most schools are offering VPC as an option, but there would be few students that it would apply to. It would be very much individualised towards the student. So it's aimed at the very vulnerable student. So it might be that there was a learning disadvantage, it might be a medical disadvantage, students that have had prolonged absences from school. And so it's very much aligned to the same outcomes as a VCE VM program. but it's far more bespoke. So we would look at individual students and their learning needs and develop our program around that. But the learning areas are ostensibly the same as VCE VM, but there isn't that obligation to do a VET subject. In VCE VM, a VET subject is compulsory. In a VPC program, students may opt to do that, usually at a certificate 1 or 2 level, but it's not a compulsory element of the program. Now, the other thing I need to describe is how VET fits into all VCE studies. So as I said before, VET is a compulsory component of VCE vocational major. So for a student to get their industry-specific skills hours, they must undertake a VET program, and that contributes to their VCE VM. A VCE student that is going towards a scored assessment or an ATAR, they may also opt to include a VET in their program, but it's clearly not a compulsory thing. It's something they may opt to put into their program, and scored VET subjects will contribute to their ATAR. Not all VET subjects are scored, and we would usually suggest that if it's a scored VCE student was to incorporate a VET subject into their program, it's of best benefit for that to be a scored assessment. But Ms. Cresp can talk to students about that. So what does a VCE vocational major program look like at John Paul College? We have the 5 different strands, as you can see there: literacy, numeracy, personal development skills, work-related skills, and industry-specific skills. So literacy and numeracy are very much applied English and applied mathematics. Personal development skills looks at elements like group dynamics and personal initiative and all those sorts of group skills that are useful and important in the workplace. Work-related skills has more of an emphasis on industry and labour markets and what labour markets are, how they are changing and all those sorts of things, and what is the person's workplace rights and responsibilities. So a great focus on that. And industry-specific skills are the skills that the students are earning or developing through either their VET course or their structured workplace learning. So that is the one element for a VPC student that they may not necessarily do. They may opt to do it, but they don't necessarily need to include that in their program. So what does a VCE vocational major or a VPC week look like at JPC? As it stands, students would be at school Monday, Tuesday and Thursday, and because most RTOs run TAFE on a Wednesday or a Friday, our students are not on campus those days. So some will attend TAFE on a Wednesday, some on a Friday, and then that work placement will be on that alternate day. Occasionally, students and employers have to enter into a block arrangement where they may miss a week of school and just do placement for a straight week, but that's rare and we can work around that as need be. Though we say that each placement is to be only 10 days, if students are in an employment industry that is hard to source a secondary placement, or in some instances, if students are doing very different skills from the first 10 days to the next 10 days. So for instance, a person that was in building and construction, if they were doing flooring with their employer for 10 weeks, and then they were going to do framing for the next 10 weeks, then there is an additional form that they can complete with me to extend that to those 20 days. But it's only under certain circumstances that we're able to do that, and that will be additional paperwork for me to do. So what we'll do with students that they seem to be in that situation, then partway through those first 10 days of placement, they will come and see me and I'll arrange that additional paperwork so that can extend their placement to up to 20 days. But the students certainly can't stay with the same employer for the whole year. If an employer is very keen to keep a student on, we can look at a school-based apprenticeship, but there is a lot more involved in that, and then that would be a further discussion. The rate of pay differs from every industry and every employer, but employers are only obliged to pay $5 a day. They usually pay significantly more than that. but then students that are working in community service and childcare in particular, they're not obliged to be paid at all, which the students don't love entirely, but we try and emphasise that it is more about the experience than it is the pay. Okay, so the most important part, and the part I describe over and over again to the students, is the vital importance of the paperwork. So I will give students an electronic version of the form that you can see there, and there's lots of also hard copies that I have. So when students source a placement, find an employer that's willing to take them on for that time, the next step is to fill in this paperwork. And so there's a section to be filled in by the student and parent and employer. And once all of that is signed and filled and the dates are agreed upon and the rate of pay is agreed upon, then they are to bring me the form, and then I have the principal sign that form. Sometimes students will bring in the form and say, oh, well, can Mr. Vicentine sign it and then I come back and fill in the rest later? No, he can't. He has to be the last one to sign that form. And once he signs that form, it's legally binding, which gives protection for both the student and the employer. But sometimes students will tell me, oh yes, I started last week. And that's a really dangerous thing for students because they have no legal support. And so it's imperative that students, once they find this employment, that they fill in this form and get it to me. And so the thorny subject then is, where do these placements come from? So sometimes it'll be that a student has a particular contact in their family or a friend of the family. Their father is working within the industry and can line something up for them. Sometimes that will work. But mostly is the case that we use a particular portal, and I run the kids through how to use this portal. It's called the SWL portal, but I'll send a link for everyone to look that up, and then I'll show you shortly how that operates. So once they log into the portal, it'll look pretty much like that there on the right of screen, and students will type in their particular industry and their particular course. They can also type in where they would like to go. So some students will type in just their postcode, and that will then give options within that industry that are nearby to home. Because most of these students aren't driving yet, that's ideally what they want. And so if they fill in those, it will generate a particular opportunity within the area, or a list of opportunities within the area. So it's like really Seek website, but it's for workplace learning. So once they get a list of particular options up on the screen, something like this will appear. And so now what I say to the students is very important, is that they read the detail of that placement, because sometimes it'll ask them to attend a placement on a Friday, but they can't go on a Friday because that may clash with their vet course. So they need to read through the detail and see that. They also need to see what the starting time is, what the expectations are. Sometimes they neglect to look at the fine print and then send it to me and it's not entirely suitable. So they need to read through all that detail to see that it's suitable. And if they find that it is, then they hit that button there called Share with Teacher, and that will email me directly. Then I follow it up from my end, and then I generate that paperwork that we discussed before so that that can all be signed and organised for their placement. So hopefully that's covered a lot of the understandings of VPC and VCE VM. But if anyone has any further questions about the curriculum or about workplace learning, then you can contact me via the email provided. Thank you.
Yep, when you're ready.
Okay. Hello. Good one.
Okay.
Hello parents and senior students of John Paul College. My name is Michael O'Keefe, Deputy Principal Learning and Teaching, and I'm here today to introduce this information video that will be useful as you navigate the final years of schooling at JPC. This video focuses on the VCE Vocational Major, or VM. This program allows students to undertake vocational training alongside their academic studies, and is a great way for students to gain practical skills that can help them in their future careers. This video will provide information on the VM program, including the types of courses available, how to apply, and the benefits of undertaking a VM. I hope that this video provided valuable information that will assist you in supporting your child through the final years of study at John Paul College.
Perfect.
Okay, one to
Very
go.
good.